Hey everyone, I got some amazing news that I have to share with you. This is a quick commercial, and I just want you to tune in really fast. There is something that I love that I started doing that has added such delight in my life, and it's called Hungry Root. Oh my gosh. Listen, changed my whole life. Hungry Root is an online grocery service that delivers modern, healthy food with recipe and meal planning support. Somebody say meal planning. Because when you're busy like I am, you want things that help to save you time and energy. And this is a great way to eat healthy and eat amazing foods. And no matter what your eating or dietary lifestyle is, for example, I'm plant based, so I get to choose foods that are plant based, soy free, nut free. If you want your meat, you can have that too. But you get an amazing delivery with all of your goodies. You get to pick foods that you love on your profile. You can try it. I promise you, you can just try it out, right? And if you don't want to continue, that's fine. But I promise you, if you just try it, you're going to love it. So, guess what? My listeners, you get a 30% off your first two deliveries and a free gift for life. Somebody say for life. I will be providing you the referral code in the show notes, but just in case while you're listening, it is Empower. But the link is going to be in the show notes. So try this out and just see what it's like for you. You're going to love it. It's been such a great blessing in my life, and I want to share it with you. All right, enjoy the show. Talk to you soon. Well, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening to, whatever time it is. I am so honored to welcome you to Empower You podcast, which is all about all things about Jesus Christ, mental health, anything to help you live and be the best version of yourself. If you're just stumbling on this episode for the first time, I am so honored to have you. This is Bewindi Bobb, your lovely host. If you have been listening to the episode since January 2020, thank you so much for your continued love and support. Continue to feel free to share this podcast with someone else. You can rate it, you can also review it. Also, if you had a chance or if you have not had a chance to listen to the previous episode, which was episode number 73, Trusting God on the Edge, I really encourage you to listen to that episode. Well, hey, y'all, I have an amazing guest today, and I'm so honored to have her with me. Her name is Chelsea Knutsen. I met Chelsea last year through my best friend Alonda Talbert. And so let me tell you a little bit about Chelsea as we get into episode number 74, entitled Reproductive Health and Mental Health, Reproductive Health Issues and Mental Health. So who is Chelsea? In a nutshell, high level overview, Chelsea Knutsen is a certified holistic health coach, certified life coach, detoxification specialist, Bible teacher, and speaker. She helps women to shrink fibroids naturally as well as heal other reproductive issues such as estrogen dominance, hormonal imbalance, PCOS, ovarian cyst, and infertility using food and God's word as medicine. Her work includes helping women to address and heal emotional baggage, traumas, strongholds, negative mindsets, and spiritual roots associated with common reproductive issues. I am so glad to introduce Chelsea to you and introduce you to Chelsea because you're going to love her. I love her heart. I love her spirit. So Chelsea, welcome to Empower You podcast.
So much, B. Wendy. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, 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 yes. I got an opportunity to work with Chelsea in May of 2020. Literally almost, yeah, a year, because we started working together May. I started your coaching program. It was a 90-day coaching program, May 25th or 26th, because it was right after the Memorial holiday. Is that right? I don't know. I know you work with so many people. Something like that. Well, I am so glad to have you as we talk about reproductive health issues and mental health because um, you are a subject matter expert in this area, and I also see the mental health part. A lot of people that I see, a lot of women that I see with mental health issues, A lot of them are saying that they have reproductive issues or hormonal issues. So talk about more your journey and what brought you into whatever you feel led to share. What brought you into this path, into this ministry to women?
Thank you, Bewindi. I think I was born into this issue, actually. I remember being 12 years old and my mother had a hysterectomy
Mhm.
because of a fibroid that was the size of a grapefruit. And
Mm.
after that, she just continued to get sick until 1991, where she ended up having a liver transplant. And then in 1998, she passed away from cancer. So I remember being 12, and I remember all my friends started getting their periods, and then everyone would ask me how to deal with their periods, because I guess back then parents weren't talking about the period back then. No
Yes.
one talked to me. I literally don't know how I was able to direct these other girls, other than it was just divine, because I don't remember reading a book. I
Wow.
don't remember my mother having a conversation. As a matter of fact, when I got my period, I remember her handing me a box of pads, and I guess I just instinctively knew what to do.
Mm.
But to fast forward a little bit, when I was 14, my period stopped.
Mhm.
And um, my mother took me to the doctors. Why is her period gone? And they put me on birth control pills. So I was on birth control pills intermittently throughout my teenage years. And then when I was 24, I was getting ready to get married. So I went to the gynecologist to make sure everything was all right. And that's when I got the official diagnosis for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so after that, I just battled with reproductive issues all the way throughout the rest of my 20s. All that time, I was trying to figure out what to do. And every time I would go to the doctors, the answer was the same thing. It was just medications. Let's see if we can do this procedure or that procedure. Let's see what we can do to help regulate your cycle.
Mhm.
And I just didn't feel like that was helping. It really wasn't.
Mhm.
So I started doing research early, back late 90s, which there wasn't that much on the internet about reproductive health back then. But I always came back to food.
Mhm.
So at first I was in the low carb, the low carb, high protein area, because that's what they taught for reproductive health if you were going to do any type of natural remedies. But um, over a process of time and doing a lot of prayer and like really seeking the Lord for healing, and even I even developed fibroids at one point in the mid 2000s.
Mhm.
And so I was just stuck, and I cried out to God. I was like, Lord, you have to show me what to do. So
Yeah.
that's really when my journey started, as far as like what I teach now, which was probably around 2006, 2007.
Thank you for sharing that with us. When did you start the journey of helping other women? I know you fell into it as a child, just from simple one-on-one, your period and understanding your body. But when did you start kind of launching into the business, the ministry and the business of helping women?
Yeah, so I'm going to skip a whole section, but I need to tell you this part
Yeah,
to the
free.
rest to make
Yeah.
sense. So in 2010, after I had been crying out to the Lord, like, what do I do about all these problems? I'm like bleeding my guts out every month. Like, it was bad. Like, my hormones were out of balance. My mental health was a mess. So he called me to a 40-day fast. So
Mhm.
I went on a 40-day fast. It was the most intense fast that I had ever done. It was sort of a juice fast. I had some juice every day for 40 days, but it was nowhere near the amount of juice that people drink today when they say they're going to go on a long-term juice fast. This was truly a Jesus fast.
Yeah.
During that fast, he healed me of fibroids. Like, I had fibroids before the fast, and when at the end, the fibroids were completely gone.
Thank you, Lord. Wow.
And so what happened is I've always had a YouTube channel. Well, not always. 2008, I started a YouTube channel, and it was sort of like just a community YouTube channel. I used to share all kinds of things, weight loss. I mean, you name it, it was on that channel. And one day I was just prompted to share my story about the fibroids, right? Did two videos, 2 10-minute videos. At that time, that was all you could do,
Mm-hmm.
was 10-minute videos. And so I got hundreds of thousands of views on those, between those two videos. And so in 2015, I ended up closing my executive search business because it was too stressful. And so I was like, well, Lord, what do I want to do? What, I mean, like, what do you want me to do? I've always liked sharing on my YouTube channel. So I started cooking on my channel. And that's how a lot of people found me, is just because of recipes. But then I started talking about reproductive health during that time. So that's how I made the transition. I hope that makes.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's just it's a reminder that a lot of times what we're looking for, God has already given us everything we need and it's right in front of us. Wow. So out of your experiences of what you were exposed to and out of your own personal experiences and God's direction in your life birthed this ministry to other women that you're doing now
Yes.
with the coaching and all of the things that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit to you since you've worked with so many women? Because when did you start? 2016?
So when I
Okay.
started actually coaching people, it was about 2016. Yes, late 2000.
Okay. So since 2016 to now, you've seen a lot of mental health. You've heard a lot, you've seen a lot when it comes to the connection between mental health issues and reproductive issues. Can you share and feel free to take as much time as you need. This is all about your story and what you provide because I want people to hear this, hear the value and connect with you for sure. So can you share about what you've seen and what you've heard and experienced with that connection?
Absolutely. So you have the woman that, goes to her doctor and she's anxious all the time. And she's like, I don't know why I'm anxious. I'm not sad about anything. My life is good. Like everything, there's no reason to be anxious. And they think she's crazy. They're like making her feel like there's, something wrong with her, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with her. She's got reproductive issues. Her hormones are out of balance. So it's going to point to some type of mental health issues because when your hormones are not working the way they're supposed to, how can your mental health be right?
Mhm.
Nothing's firing on all cylinders when that's the case.
Right.
And so then there's the woman who, has been bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and then she's anemic, and she has low iron, and then she experiences heart palpitations and the anxiety and fear, and then she's angry and resentful because she's got all this, like all the emotions start to stir up. And then when that happens, a lot of times they'll go to the doctors and get the same runaround, and nobody knows what's wrong. Then you've got the woman who can't stop eating. She
Yeah.
just can't. Like, she doesn't want to binge and purge, or not even if it's so much purging. She's trying to get the excess weight off. The weight won't come off. She's, frustrated because she's trying everything. She goes to the grocery store, buys all these groceries, these healthy groceries, and makes her smoothies or juices or salads or healthy dishes. And by Wednesday, she's in the McDonald's drive-through and
Mhm.
she just can't stop herself.
Mhm.
Well, it's because the hormones are out of balance.
Yeah.
And so it causes all these emotions to come up, and then you go try to self-medicate in the McDonald's drive-through or whatever your thing is, and then the cycle continues. And then you think something's wrong with you because the doctor said that there's something wrong with you, and they're not making the connection between the fact that your hormones are out of whack, and that's why you're mentally unstable. So, and it really points back to what we've been putting in our body over the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. You there were so many things that you taught in that 90 day, in your 90 day? I'm sure it's like 90 day 2.0 now, but there are so many things you taught in the 90 day group coaching just around the relationship between food and hormonal health, and how foods affect our bodies and eat what we consume, for sure. And I remember I remember you mentioned coffee, and I was like, no, no. Now, I will be honest, we got to talk about me after this at some point, but I did stay off of coffee for like 100 days and then picked it back up, but I've maintained the no meat, right? And so just to transition in the lifestyle journey, and talking about that this is not perfection, but this is a process, and the journey towards making the changes to really, really fight for your health. So when the woman comes to you and you are able to help her see the connection, because a lot of women are not aware that they even have a hormonal problem. There are many people who have been through a lot of trauma. I see, and you see that too, who've been through trauma, or they're walking around with resentments or hurts or unforgiveness in their heart, a lot of anger, and they don't know the relationship between their hormonal issues and what's going on emotionally. And on top of that, they've gone to the doctor, and the doctor have tried to prescribe them medications, hysterectomy, this pampering, whatever pill to make them have a period, to make them stop having a period, all the things. This woman comes, and you share this information. What are some things that you've seen in terms of the woman processing that information, as well as the process of now beginning to take the steps, and because it may seem overwhelming because they have so many voices in their head, from family to medical to all sorts of things. What have you seen in this woman being able to process this information towards making the action steps without being so overwhelmed by all the information? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, it does. So, there are many women that could benefit from, going through one of my programs and, making the change, and their life would be absolutely transformed if they did go through it. But not everybody is ready for that. So that's one part of it. Most women who come to me are women who are desperate. Like, because the change is such a big change, you have to have some type of motivating factor. Like, it can't, like, there's a lot of women who are, they have all these reproductive issues and they are bad. Don't get me wrong, they're bad, but they're not bad enough for them to make a change. So, you know, I hate to be the bearer of, bad news there, but that right there is the reality. It's kind of like you have to have a reason to change. And I think the reason that people don't have a reason to change because they think what they're going through is normal, because so many other people are going through it. They're like, well, this must be the way life is supposed to be because, all my friends are dealing with this same thing.
Mhm.
Well, in all actuality, it's not normal. Let me just give you one example, and I'm sure you've heard me say this.
Mhm.
Um, a woman has her cycle and she thinks it's pretty normal until I tell her that her cycle's only supposed to be 2 or 3 tablespoons of blood every month.
Mm.
And then she's like, wait a minute, I got to wear a diaper or overnight pads for 10 days. What do you mean 2 tablespoons of blood? And then once they get that information that shows that what they're going through is not normal, if they stay around long enough to catch that,
Yes.
that's when they're like, okay, I think maybe I need to make some shifts. And so that would be the beginning of maybe one scenario. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
That makes sense. That does. How much do you feel comfortable about sharing about your program? Well, in fact, let's change that. So identify the woman. So you just said the woman has to have a motivating problem, a motivating factor. Um, she has to have a reason. So there's some type of hormonal issue going on. Maybe she's experiencing some of the things you talked about. She's either eating a lot, or having these binges where she's trying to control. She wants to lose weight, but She just finds it hard to stop or maintain a life of consistency, or she has irregular periods, or she has been told that she has PCOS or endometriosis or fibroids or
Mhm.
something like that. And her problem, she has tried everything. She doesn't want to have a hysterectomy, and she's her life is technically on her hormonal health is technically on life support,
Mhm.
where every sign is pointing, every doctor is saying you need to have a hysterectomy or else.
Mhm.
So this is the woman that's coming to see you. Am I missing anything?
Yes, that's the woman that's coming to see me.
That's the one to come and see you. This woman comes to see you and walk us through the process of what should that woman expect, and what are components of your program that you feel comfortable to share, that that woman will be able to experience. What's the expected life transformation? I know it depends on her, of course, but what expected life transformation are is supposed to happen as well?
Right. So, so my program is, first of all, let me just say this. When you go in, when you get to the place where you have these reproductive issues and they are, affecting your mental health, and you just can't, like, some people can't even hold down their job the right way. Like, they got, like, there's so much involved in reproductive health, and as well as the mental aspect of it. By the time you get to that place, you are sick.
Mm,
Like, you are literally a sick person and you need help. But society has made it such that women just have to keep going. Like, it doesn't matter if you're sick, you have to take care of your kids, you need to go to work, you got to do everything that that is expected of you. You can't slow down.
right.
So the first thing I want to say to women, if this is happening to you and you are hemorrhaging every month and you've got all these symptoms from these reproductive health, you need help. Like, and you've got to give yourself a chance to get well. And
Mhm.
you didn't get in this situation overnight. So it's going to take you time to get out of it. So do you remember me talking about how I was 12 years old, got my period, and then by 14, like, I started having PCOS symptoms, and then I've been sick since
Mm,
before my period stopped. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm almost 50 now.
yeah,
Well, when I started, I was in my 20s, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I
right.
didn't stop doing what I was doing, um,
Ugh.
like, imagine what kind of torture my body had been through. So that's the first thing I like to get people to understand is, like, it's okay to slow down and
Mhm,
take some good care of yourself and let yourself heal. And
mhm,
not only are you physically a mess, but you're emotionally a mess. A lot of people are emotionally messed, like you mentioned, the fear, the anxiety, the resentment, all that emotional bondage and stuff that they still need healed up. That's all connected.
mhm,
So, as far as my coaching program is concerned, I coach women every week, and we do a live coaching session, and it is similar to what we're doing here on this Zoom. But I don't think we'll be on video on your podcast. I don't
uh,
imagine.
no,
Okay.
unless you want me to. Yeah.
So it's similar to this style. There's usually about 10 people in the group. I do a teaching, and then we go through and coach each person um, based on whatever it is that they are having issues with that week. I have put in a component where we have a WhatsApp group and we interact every single day. I give a motivational message every morning, or 5 mornings a week. And I help people through the challenges every day of how they are, working through this process of healing. And I have really um, done work to help people to address why they are in this situation in the first place. And as they get healed as to why they have these issues, then the other stuff comes a little bit easier because you can address why you have the issue, whatever the emotional issue is. A lot of women are dealing with fear because of trauma.
Yeah.
Maybe they were raped, maybe they were, molested or abused or divorced or abandoned. I mean, it could be any number of things, and those things need to be worked on so that the physical can follow suit.
Mhm.
I also have an online classroom. I think you're familiar with that. The where everything you need to know about reproductive issues is on there. Um, I also have a second program that is specifically rooted in helping you to heal from emotional trauma associated with reproductive issues, and help you with techniques to deal with stress. um, I teach you what to eat, how to eat, how much to eat. I talk about herbs and supplements, all those good things, like everything you need to know to heal is what I try to encompass in my programs based on both of them simultaneously. Usually people will go through the first one first, which is the 90-day walk to freedom from fibroids group coaching program. And you can join that program whether you have fibroids or not. It's just really reproductive issues. And then once you're done with that, because it teaches you the components and it starts you on the emotional healing journey. And then the second program is a deep dive into emotional healing.
Hmm. And let
So
me just quickly do a plug in. The 90 Day to Freedom is such a dynamic program. Like, I have never been exposed to so much information, and everything. You add a lot of value, and on top of that, it was refreshing to know that Chelsea is not just doing this work with reproductive health, but she's doing it Holy Spirit led.
mm,
Um, you're a believer. You Holy Ghost filled, fruits of the spirit, walking in your anointing, and you incorporate that. You get the Christian, you get the believer, you get the Holy Spirit driven leader and minister along with the reproductive health. And so that's how much that makes even it more valuable for women who come to work with you, whether they believe in Christ or whether they don't.
yeah,
um, and so your love for people, is it just oozes out of your work, the way that you do it. You're very compassionate, very patient. So I just know that every woman who comes to your program feels that. I hope, I know I did, feels that love and that compassion through the process. And you're very transparent. You're very transparent with your struggles. I don't know if you can talk about it here, but the experiences of hair loss. If you want to talk about that, because that's another symptom that you mentioned. Take a moment and talk about that, because a lot of people may experience that and they have no idea, or maybe they do, but it's just it's so many symptoms associated with reproductive health for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. I'd be glad to share that. Because it was pretty devastating. I lost my hair 3 different times,
Mhm.
um, from reproductive issues and hormonal imbalance, and actually, really toxicity in my body. And I've always been somebody with a head full of hair, always really nice hair. Like that was probably one of my best assets when I was growing up. And then all of a sudden, probably in my 30s, my hair started to shed. Nice hair all over the bathroom floor. Like, what in the world? Why is my hair falling out? And I'm surprised it took that long for it to start falling out because my hormones were a mess like my entire adult life. But so I lost my hair and I cut it off. I didn't realize it at the time, the first time that I lost it, that it was because of the hormonal health. But
Mhm.
then the second time it happened, I knew that that was the case. Like I had grew it all back and it fell out again. And I knew that was the case, but I was on this kick where I just didn't want to change what I was doing. Like I wanted to eat what I wanted to eat. And the reason I wanted to do it is because I was hurting so bad. It was like this vicious cycle. And so even though my hair grew back again, I started getting thin again and falling out, and I had to cut it off again.
Mhm.
But God is so wonderful. He hears the cry of your heart, and He shows you exactly what it is you need for whatever season you're in. And He showed me how to get my hair back.
Wow.
And it's just hair, it's not who I am, but it certainly speaks to your femininity when your hair is thin, and it doesn't feel good when your hair is falling out. But you can if a woman is listening to me right now speaking and your hair is thin or it has fallen out and you have bald spots and the doctors told you XYZ about your hair, doesn't matter what he said or she has said about your hair, you can restore your hair. But it really depends on if you're ready to tackle some of the things going on in your body and work on healing
Mhm.
internally and as well as emotionally. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
So, what are some things? Let's say, and I want you to just take your time and speak to those women. Um, they're noticing a lot of changes, whether it's in their periods, for example, their period has stopped, or it's extended, it's more excessive. It's so funny. The previous episode, I talked about the woman with the a hormonal problem in the Bible.
Mhm.
It was a hormonal problem. Let's just be honest. Like she bled for 12 years. Like that's a hormonal problem, right? But women are listening to you right now, and they are fearful. I mean, the medical system can be traumatic.
Mhm.
They basically tell, I don't even like going to the doctor. And we'll talk about it offline, but I don't like to go to the doctor. I was told I need to get a second opinion because of my period stopped and all those things. But we'll talk about that. But the woman who's hearing you, she does not want to go to the doctor, and she's a little bit hesitant, and she's really stressed out. And what advice? I mean, you're sharing a lot of things that the woman can do. Or she just needs to email you or go to www.whatchelseaeats.com, right? That's what she needs to do, essentially speaking. But what would you say to her? I mean, there's so many people that are going through this, um, experiencing this. What would you say to her, so that she can see hope in being able to do your program and work with you?
Yeah. So, first of all, I am not a doctor.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I don't give medical advice. I don't treat, cure, prescribe anything. Okay. But I also know how it feels to be suffering with all kinds of issues and going to the doctor and getting no answers,
mhm,
none. Actually have gone and made it worse, and actually made my emotional well-being worse because of how I was treated when I was at the doctor's, you know. And I have just felt like it was, the medical establishment, it operates more like a business, like you're a number more so than a person. That's my personal experience. So I choose not to go under any circumstance. Now,
mhm,
if I fell down the steps and broke my arm, I would go get my arm set so that my arm would, heal. But I'm not going for any other reason. And here's why I believe that. And I'm not telling you that that is something that you should do it. I know that when I was at my sickest, almost ready to die, probably if God had not intervened, I probably would not be here having a conversation with you. All I know is that God said that I should call to him and he would answer me and show me great and mighty things that I do not know.
yeah,
And that's exactly what he did. And when I sat down and really listened to what he had to say, and I did what he had to say, that's when I started getting well. God always has an answer. And I tell people all the time, people will say, well, I've been doing this for 2 months. I've been working on this for 2 months. And, Chelsea, I'm not really seeing any results. And I'm like, 2 months? Are you kidding me? Like, give God a chance to come in and do something for you. But I digress. I want to what I want to share here though is you have got to give God the opportunity to teach you how to take care of yourself,
mhm,
because we've been doing things one way for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever, however old you are, and
mhm,
we have to learn how to think differently
yeah,
about food, about our lifestyle.
mhm,
And if we let him teach us how to heal for our particular situation
mhm,
and we walk in obedience to what he tells us, you can't help but to heal.
yeah,
A doctor didn't do that for me.
yeah,
Dr. Jesus did. Like he
yeah,
said, be my healer, and that's exactly what he has been.
mhm. I love
So
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you share a couple examples or a few of transformations that have happened from your clients? Of course, confidentiality, of course, or testimonials, for women who have been on the journey.
absolutely. So I have one woman who started with me. She was one of my a favorite client
Yeah.
because she would do everything I told her to do. All of you guys are my favorite clients. I'm just messing around. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, she had a 12 centimeter fibroid, and she had worked with me for about 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And well, after the 90-day program, she decided, okay, I'm going to get serious.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked for another 3 months. And after that third month, she went and got another ultrasound. She had an ultrasound at the beginning of the program. And then, so it was 6 months later, the fibroid had shrank down to 8 centimeters. So
Oh,
4 centimeters shrinkage in 6 months. And that's actually unheard of. That doesn't, that's like, it usually takes longer than that for that big of a fibroid to shrink that quickly. So that just goes to show, if you do what you need to do, things will happen for you.
wow.
Another testimony was, I have a client who bled every single day for 3 solid years. Can you imagine bleeding every single day for 3 years? Every day for 3 years. She was on my program, and she did what I told her to do for her specific issues for 30 days. After the first 30 days, the bleeding stopped. And after that, she's had a regular period ever since.
Wow.
And that's pretty devastating, because she said 3 years. And my period would come for 6 months. Like, I would bleed for 6 months. I can't imagine if I bled for 3 years, how that would make me feel.
I cannot imagine that either.
So I have clients that, don't have their period, they're not having their period at all. And once they make the changes, they have their period comes back.
Mhm.
Like, there's all kinds of things. Sometimes women are so anxious, like ready to pull their hair out. They can't even hold their jaw down. They're like thinking that God has turned his back on them. And when they get the right food in their bodies and stop doing the binging cycle, the eating the junk stuff, and actually let their body heal and get on the right herbs and supplements for their particular body, they start to level out, and
Mhm.
they don't need the medications anymore.
Yeah, those are awesome. When you said the 12 centimeters, for people who don't know math, what is that equivalent to? The size of a what?
Let's see. So I have my ruler here. It's like probably the size of a small melon,
Hmm.
antelope, or like a really big grapefruit.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow. So the the changes with the food associated with hormonal health. I'm not asking you to go into the bolts, the nuts and bolts of your program, but just high level overview. What are
Sure.
some changes that women that your women that your clients are having to make in their eating?
So there's something called troublemaker for foods, and you'll
Say
hear
it again.
troublemaker foods, trouble. But really, they're the foods to avoid list. I'm sure you've heard me say that very, very often. Foods to avoid.
Yeah.
And people like often say, "Well, Chelsea, you've taken everything away. What am I supposed to eat?" But and I get it, because we grow up learning a certain way to eat, and we eat to fulfill and that those emotions, and like, really, that's not why we're supposed to be eating. We're supposed to be eating for enjoy. God created food for us to enjoy, but we're also supposed to just be eating for fuel,
Hmm.
not living to eat. Eat
Hmm.
to live.
Yeah.
Eggs are like one of the big things to get rid of. Meat, dairy, fish, even fish. I know that people are squirming in their seat hearing me say even fish. Yeah, fish can be worse than pork sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on what you've got. Um, caffeine. Caffeine is a hormone disruptor. I know, I see your face. It's okay. Um, so meat, dairy, fish, pork, caffeine, carbohydrates like pasta, white foods, cakes, cookies, processed foods, things like that. And I know it sounds really crazy, but like, you can't, like, you ever hear the expression, Don't keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. It'll, like, if you keep on eating that stuff, you're going to continue in that same vein. And even in the plant kingdom, even though I'm a huge advocate of eating fruits and vegetables, there's even some foods in the plant kingdom that you shouldn't eat that are going to disrupt your hormones. Like, for example, I teach this in my program. If you're eating too much fat and you're eating all those that fruit and all that stuff, like, it's going, like, it's crashing against each other. And even though you're trying to do something good, you're still messing with your hormones. So you really need to know how to pull all this stuff together.
And
So
this is and this is for the women who are struggling with all of the hormonal issues that you identify.
yes. And so once you're healed,
Hmm.
you can start adding some of those foods back
Hmm.
with moderation. You can never go back to what you used to do. Like, it got you in this situation, but you can experiment um,
Hmm.
as,
Hmm.
as you're once you've healed. But you've got to give yourself time to heal, however long that takes.
Yes. So the first step to work with you, if a woman is listening and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she is talking about me," uh,
Mhm.
the first step is to contact you, and they would contact you by www.whatchelseaeats.com.
Yes.
Talk about you have a health, you have a healing, you have a healing, you have a prayer, the healing group, right?
Yes, an emotional healing group. It's
Okay.
called Emotional Healing for Womb Wellness.
Okay.
It is similar to the 90-day Walk to Freedom group coaching program
Mhm.
for fibroids and reproductive issues.
Mhm.
But the difference is, so it's set up the same way, but the difference is that we are going at it with the deep rooted issues, helping you to discover what your issues are and then helping you work through them. But you're doing the work. I'm there to coach you and help you walk through it. Like,
Absolutely.
there's no magic wand. Like, you still
Right.
have to dig deep and work through the exercises that I give you and things of that nature. But it can be really scary walking through that emotional trauma because everybody's trauma is different. Like, what might seem traumatic to you might be like, oh, that's not really that big a deal to me, and vice versa, you know.
Absolutely.
And, like, a lot of times, we go to church every Sunday, and sometimes they just don't talk about this stuff, you know? And women are sitting up in church traumatized because somebody raped them, when they were 15 and they're 40
Yep.
and they're still thinking about that issue, and or, they were molested. That is so big. Like, people, you would be, no, you wouldn't. You're a mental health professional. I know you hear that every day, but
Yeah.
lots of people have been molested, boys and girls, and,
Mhm.
like, it's traumatic.
Mhm.
So that's what people walk
Mhm.
through.
And even rape within marriage, which sometimes is not even considered rape. But
Yes,
if you did not want to have sex and you told your husband no and he had sex, that
mm,
is rape.
yes,
The idea of dealing with that, like, that's another thing that people don't typically realize for sure, but it's real and it happens a lot, as well as adultery and all of the things that happens in marriages for sure. So when the woman calls you and she wants to work with you and she does a consultation, I believe you have a consultation process, and she hears the value even in this, there's so much value from this conversation, just to hear the life transformation, the results and I know there's no time to be able to talk about all of the transformations that you've seen, because this is a life journey. You're not saying that these things are going to happen, in 3 months or 6 months. This is a decision to commit, to live
yes.
really the way that we ought to be eating anyway. But let's say the woman needs this and she knows she needs to make this decision to invest in her emotional health, her physical health, but maybe she's concerned about the financial aspect. What do you say to those women? I'm sure you've probably had many of those conversations with people for sure.
Right. So that's a really good question. You know, um, for the longest time, I didn't charge enough for my programs because I was trying to help
Yeah.
the person that I felt like couldn't afford my services or whatever. And I felt like what God showed me is that I was doing people a disservice, because what I found is that as soon as something got hard and there's no real investment in it, in the process, then people are easy, they'll run away from it. Like if it's something easy for them to, invest in, like it's kind of like, well, I just gave, X amount. I can just, I can just skate by. I'm gonna try something else. Not
That's
that that's the whole reason, but the reality is we figure out a way to do what we want to do. Like I'm gonna tell you, when I was broke and I wanted to do something or I wanted to buy something, I figured out a way to do it. And I like, even if it's just, God, I don't have this money. You showed me this program. I need help. Can
yeah.
you give me a way? And if you're supposed to do it, God will show you a way. But on the last thing I want to say about it is I have made it possible for even somebody who doesn't make a lot of money to be able to invest in the program, even if they have to make, series of payments to make it work.
Mhm.
But I'm not here to break people, because I know we're dealing with normal everyday people.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes we just have to invest in ourselves.
Especially when our lives are on life support, when our hormonal health is on life support,
Yep,
you know.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, I really appreciate you. Is there anything else, Chelsea, that I didn't ask you? So let me say this. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you feel like is important to say to those women that are listening today?
Yeah. So I just want to say that you're not alone. You are absolutely not alone. God sees you. And if you're questioning whether or not God wants you healed, let me just say this. He went to the cross. Jesus went to the cross so that you can be healed. So that's number one.
Yes.
And I say this to anybody, and I mean it. If you have run across me and the doctor has been telling you you need surgery, you need all this stuff, I don't believe God runs my name across people's paths if he does not intend for them to get some kind of help
Mhm.
on their healing journey. Like, you not, if you heard my name, you do not need to go get surgery. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I just
I
just believe that.
I
And
believe.
you're, you might have to, you know, change some mindsets and all that stuff, but you don't have to suffer.
Yes, yes. You don't. You don't. Thank you so much, Chelsea. So let me just kind of go through the ways that people can work with you. People can go to your website at www.whatchelseaeats.com. You have on your YouTube. I don't have it on here, but your YouTube channel is What Chelsea Eats.
Yes, that's probably the first place anybody should go.
Yes. The
Just
YouTube.
watch videos. Yeah, just go watch videos. You'll get to know me and my personality.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of free information on there that will help you get started on the journey. And if you feel like after you've watched those videos that you need some help, then contact me. And there's
Mhm.
always information in the description boxes of the videos to get in touch with me.
Absolutely. Well, Chelsea, I am so glad that we got to have this conversation. It's so good to see your face again, and you've added a lot of value to my life. And who would have known that I would have you as a guest on the podcast?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, y'all. Well, you heard a wonderful, wonderful dynamic episode. Listen, if you're a man and this does not relate to you, maybe you know a woman, your sister, your cousin, your friend, who is having some type of hormonal issue, as mentioned, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, estrogen dominance, etc., or any reproductive issue, please share this episode with her. Women, if you are not dealing with this, but you know someone who is, please share this episode with someone. And I'll be back next week with another dynamic episode.